Thanks for staying with us. Time now for Media Watch, for which we're joined by James Creedon. Hi, James.
Evening, Georgia.
Okay, now, so we're going to start off with a video circulating showing just how under-resourced the Malian army is. And some might say justifies why the French felt the need to intervene.
That's right. It's at 113,000 views on YouTube in the past few days. It was from a current affairs show called C'est dans l'air. It's in the air on France 5. State television, and I suppose it paints the army as somewhat under-resourced because they're making sounds instead of actually firing bullets. Let's take a look at the video.
Boom, 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 boom.
Il ne manque pas d'allant, mais de.
Okay, there's something a little bit comic about it, but obviously they need, you know...
It's comic, tragic, you might say.
They didn't have the ammunition, and I suppose you could say, could perhaps neighbouring or allied countries not have provided ammunition? It does bring up all sorts of questions, but that video quite shared on French social media.
They're in for a shock when they're actually in a situation involving real ammunition.
That's it.
Right, okay, now next to the Lance Armstrong interview, now a shower of criticism has rained down on the former cycling superstar after he admitted to taking performance-enhancing drugs after years of denying it.
That's right. Lots and lots of people criticising him on social media. He was called all sorts of bad names. Piers Morgan of CNN said he is the worst lying, doping cheat in the history of sport. And then he went on to tweet, "What a snivelling, lying, cheating little wretch Armstrong revealed himself to be tonight. I hope he now just disappears," which provoked some people to say, hold on a minute, Piers Morgan. Aren't there some questions hanging over you with the whole hacking scandal? So some people linking to articles saying that Lord Leveson didn't believe Piers Morgan's testimony when he was head of the news. He was editor for News of the World at one point. And another person who was not at all happy with him is this guy, Rick Riley, who is a sports journalist in the US, who spent 14 years defending him and defending Armstrong, saying he didn't believe any of the talk about drugs. After years of lying to my face, Lance Armstrong apologizes to me in an email. He can keep it. And actually what happened was there was an email sent just before the interview actually aired to one of his most ardent supporters. And in the email, you can see it down here, an extract of it. He just said, "Riles, I'm sorry." Two very important words, to which Riles replied, "My first thoughts were, that's it, sorry, for 14 years of defending a man and in the end being made to look like a chump." And as he was looking at the Oprah interview as it went out live last night, so far this Armstrong thing has been 20% confession, 80% justification. So he's certainly lost a friend there. And just one comic tweet at the end. French, obviously a lot of interest in France as well. One person saying, well, he won 7 Tour de France. You know, I have to say the last time I took drugs, I couldn't even find my way to a Vélib station. So I'm not sure it's the same kind of drugs.
That's a positive spin on it. Well, depending on which way you look at it.
Vélib is the free bike in Paris, I should point out. The free bikes for getting around the city.
Okay, now, talking about Paris, we have an extreme example about just how expensive property can be here.
That's right. I don't think any of us are particularly happy at what we have to pay for rent at the end of the month.
Tell me about it.
But take a look at this room, Georgia. I'm sure you'll feel better about your apartment and what you're paying for it after seeing this. That little broom cupboard costs €330 a month, and it's 1.5 metres squared. And there was a guy called Dominique who was living there for 15 years until a charitable foundation found out about his situation, and it has now been referred to the courts. And as I said earlier, I think the guy who was renting it out for €330 a month should be put into a tiny, tiny little prison cell for the foreseeable future.
Right. Okay, now the Republican Party's made a big communications blunder. It was looking at improving its links with minorities, but that isn't quite how it turned out.
Well, look where they decided to have this conference, in the Burwell Plantation, right, which is a former slave plantation, in fact. And the whole thing was to discuss successful communications with minorities and women. So as Gawker pointed out, maybe they could have picked a better place to talk about relations with minorities than a former slave plantation.
Maybe they were just trying to give people the opportunity to claim it back. You know, recast
know.
the plantation as something positive.
Just bad PR, Georgia.
Well, okay, and finally, the Ravages of War photographer takes portraits of soldiers before, during, and after war.
All right, well, take a look at these. I saw it on social media today. It's been around the web for a little while. A photographer by the name of Lalage Snow photographed British soldiers in Afghanistan over the course of a year, before, during, and after war. And I think it gives some pretty striking results, depending on, you know, what you view. I think certainly there his face did change over the course of the year. You know, given in the centre you could perhaps detect maybe the intensity of the activity of war, and afterwards, I suppose, the effects. And there are quite a few of them, so worth checking out online.
Yeah, you certainly do look quite drawn in the third picture.
Yeah.
All right, thanks very much,
Georgia.
James Creedon there, getting us up to date with Media Watch. Okay, well, stay with us. We've got more news and headlines coming up after this short break.